Sometimes the strangest encounters happen in the most ordinary moments. Sometimes a simple bus stop becomes the stage for something you'll never forget. This is the story of how a drunk stranger, a bizarre phrase, and an unexpected declaration of love made me question everything I thought I knew about my hometown. My name is Alex, and I'm 23 years old. I live in a small town that most people have never heard of, and honestly, that's probably for the best. Let me tell you about my town first, because you need to understand the place to understand the story. My town has a nickname. People call it Drunken, not officially, but everyone who lives here knows that's what it's called. Drunken, population 5,000, where the bars outnumber the grocery stores 3-1. It's the kind of place where you see someone stumbling down Main Street at 10 in the morning and nobody bats an eye. The kind of place where the police know all the regular drunks by name. Where the hospital emergency room has a special section just for alcohol-related incidents. It wasn't always like this. My grandparents say the town used to be nice, quiet, normal. But then the factory closed. Then the mine shut down. Jobs disappeared, hope disappeared. And what rushed in to fill that empty space was alcohol, and drugs, and desperation. Now my town is known as a place where homeless people come to stay, where addicts come to disappear, where broken people come to be forgotten. They flock here year-round. Winter, spring, summer, fall. Doesn't matter. The town is always full of people who have nowhere else to go. The shelters are always packed. The soup kitchens always have long lines. The streets always have someone sleeping on them. Most of the homeless population are alcoholics. Some are drug addicts. Many are both. You learn to recognize them, the regulars, the ones who are always on the same corner, always asking for the same things. There's Tom, who stands outside the convenience store and asks everyone for spare change. Been doing it for 5 years. There's Linda, who sleeps under the bridge and talks to herself about her daughter who died. Nobody knows if the daughter story is true. There's Marcus, who used to be a teacher before the drinking took over. He can still recite Shakespeare when he's sober enough. These are the people who make up the fabric of my town, the invisible population that everyone sees but nobody really looks at. I grew up here. I've seen it all. Nothing surprises me anymore. Or so I thought. The encounter happened 3 weeks ago, on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because Tuesdays are my least favorite day of the week. I'd been at the library, using their internet because mine was out. Again, the cable company in my town is as reliable as the weather. I finished around 4 in the afternoon, packed up my laptop, headed to the bus stop. The bus stop is nothing special, just a bench and a sign. No shelter, no cover. When it rains, you get wet. It's located on Main Street, right in the heart of downtown, which means it's also right in the heart of where most of the homeless population hangs out. I'd been waiting at that bus stop for years, seen hundreds of drunk people stumble by. It was just part of life. I sat down on the bench, pulled out my phone, started scrolling through social media while I waited. The bus was supposed to come in 20 minutes. I'd timed it perfectly. The afternoon was warm, not hot, but pleasant. The kind of weather that makes you forget you live in Drunken. A few cars drove by. A couple walking their dog passed on the sidewalk. Normal Tuesday afternoon stuff. Then I heard footsteps. Unsteady footsteps. The kind that sound like someone trying to walk on a boat in rough water. I glanced up, saw him approaching. He was maybe 40 years old, hard to tell exactly. Alcohol and hard-living age people in ways that numbers can't capture. White guy, medium height. Skinny in that unhealthy way that comes from drinking meals instead of eating them. Wearing jeans that had seen better days. A faded black t-shirt with some band logo I didn't recognize. Worn sneakers with the laces untied. And he was drunk. Very drunk. The kind of drunk where every step is an accomplishment. I went back to my phone. Tried to look busy, tried to look unapproachable. In my town, you learn this survival tactic early. Don't make eye contact. Don't engage. Don't invite conversation. But it didn't matter. He came right up to me. Stopped maybe 3 feet away, swaying slightly. "Hey," he said. His voice was rough, scratchy, like he'd been shouting or smoking for years. I glanced up, gave him the briefest nod, went back to my phone. "You got a smoke?" The question I'd heard 1,000 times. The opening line of every interaction with a drunk stranger. "No, sorry." "I don't smoke," I said. "Keep it short. Keep it polite but firm." Damn. he muttered. But he didn't walk away. Instead, he moved closer, sat down on the bench beside me, not right next to me. He left a bit of space, but close enough that I could smell him. Alcohol, sweat, cigarettes, the smell of someone who hadn't showered in days. I shifted slightly, tried to create more distance without being obvious about it. He didn't notice, or didn't care. "Check this out," he said suddenly. I looked over. He was pulling at his shirt collar, tugging it down to reveal his neck. There was a tattoo there. Fresh. Really fresh. Wrapped in that clear second skin stuff tattoo artists use. The tattoo was words. Some kind of script. Hard to read through the plastic and the redness of fresh ink. "Got it yesterday," he said proudly. "You like it?" "It's nice," I said automatically. The response you give when you don't care but want to end the conversation. "Hurt like a bitch," he continued. "But worth it. Everything worth doing hurts a little, you know?" I didn't respond. Hoped he'd take the hint. He didn't. Instead, he made this weird sound. Like a quiet hiss. Or maybe like a crowd making that "ah" sound when something impressive happens. Then he said something that made no sense. "Shake the hand that shook the world." I looked at him. "What?" He grinned. His teeth were yellowed. A few were missing. "Shake the hand that shook the world," he repeated. Same tone. Like it was a phrase everyone should know. Okay, I said. Went back to my phone. But he said it again. "Shake the hand that shook the world." Then made that hissing crowd sound again. I realized this was going to be a long wait for the bus. The guy settled into the bench. Didn't seem to be in any hurry to leave. He kept making that sound. That weird "ah" hiss. Like he was imitating a crowd reaction. And every minute or so, he'd repeat the phrase, "Shake the hand that shook the world." Sometimes he'd say it to me. Sometimes he'd say it to himself. Sometimes he'd say it to the air. I tried to ignore him, scrolled through my phone, checked the time. 15 more minutes until the bus. "You from here?" he asked suddenly. "Yeah," I said. Short answer. Don't encourage conversation. "Me too. Born and raised." Well, raised anyway. Born in the city. But came here when I was 5. I nodded. Didn't ask any follow-up questions. "This town, man. This town." He shook his head. "It gets in your blood, you know. Like a disease. Can't leave, can't stay, can't do nothing." He had a point. But I wasn't going to tell him that. "Shake the hand that shook the world," he said again. Laughed to himself. "What does that even mean?" I asked. Immediately regretted it. Never ask questions. Questions lead to longer conversations. His eyes lit up. Like I'd finally asked the right thing. "What does it mean? Man, what does it mean?" He leaned back on the bench, looked up at the sky. "It means I've been places, done things, shook hands with people who matter. You shake my hand, you're connected to all of that." "Okay," I said. Didn't believe a word of it, but wasn't going to argue with a drunk guy. "I'm serious, man. I've met people, important people, musicians, artists, people who changed the world." "Cool," I said. Checked the time again. 12 more minutes. "You don't believe me." He didn't sound upset, just stated it as fact. I didn't say that. "You didn't have to. I can tell." He made that sound again, the hiss crowd noise. "Shake the hand that shook the world," he said, then laughed. A woman walked by with her shopping bags, gave us a wide berth, walked faster. The drunk guy didn't notice, or pretended not to. "You ever think about it?" he asked. "About all the hands you've shaken in your life?" "Not really," I admitted. "You should. Every hand you shake is a connection, a link in a chain. You shake someone's hand, you're touching everyone they've ever touched." It was actually kind of profound, in a weird, drunk philosophy sort of way. "I guess that's true," I said. "Damn right it's true," he nodded enthusiastically. "That's why it matters. That's why you gotta shake the hand that shook the world." There it was again. The phrase. I was starting to wonder if he'd say anything else, or if this was just his loop for the day. Some drunks have loops, phrases or stories they repeat endlessly, like a broken record. "Shake the hand that shook the world," he said again. Right on cue. 10 more minutes until the bus. I checked the time obsessively now. A police car drove by slowly. The cop looked at us, probably recognizing the drunk guy, probably deciding whether to stop. The car kept going. Apparently, sitting at a bus stop while drunk wasn't enough to warrant attention today. The drunk guy pulled out a phone, one of those old flip phones, the kind nobody uses anymore. He stared at it for a moment, didn't open it, just held it. "Supposed to call my sister," he muttered. "She worries." "You should call her then," I said, trying to be helpful, trying to encourage him to leave. "Nah, she'll just yell at me, tell me I need to get my shit together, stop drinking, get a job, same old speech." He put the phone back in his pocket. "She's right though," he admitted. "I do need to get my shit together. But tomorrow, always tomorrow." The sadness in his voice was real. For a moment, he wasn't just a drunk guy at a bus stop. He was a person, with a sister who worried, with promises he couldn't keep. "Shake the hand that shook the world," he said. But this time it sounded less enthusiastic, more automatic. "You say that a lot," I observed. "Yeah, it's my thing, my catchphrase. Everyone needs a catchphrase, right? Like a superhero. I guess." "What's your catchphrase?" he asked. "I don't have one. Everyone has one, even if they don't know it. Something they say all the time without thinking." I thought about it. He might be right, but I couldn't think of mine. "See? You got one. You just don't know it yet." He made that sound again. 7 more minutes. The bus was almost here. The drunk guy stood up suddenly, wobbled a bit, steadied himself. "I should get going," he announced. "Okay," I said, relief flooding through me, finally. But he didn't walk away, just stood there, looking at me. "I gotta get home. My sister's expecting me. Well, not expecting, but she'll notice if I don't show up eventually." "Okay," I repeated. He turned to leave, took 2 steps, then stopped, turned back around, put out his hand for a handshake. "I love you," he said, dead serious, looking right at me. I stared at him, at his outstretched hand, at his sincere expression. "I don't know you," I said. It came out automatically. The truth. "I know," he said. "But love a brother, you know?" Brother. He was calling me brother, even though we'd just met, even though we'd barely had a conversation. His hand was still out there, waiting. I didn't want to shake it, didn't want to encourage him, didn't want this moment to last any longer. But there was something in his eyes, something genuine, something that made him more than just a drunk guy at a bus stop. I stood up, but instead of shaking his hand, I gave him an elbow tap, the pandemic greeting that had stuck around. He smiled, understood, returned the elbow tap. "Shake the hand that shook the world," he said one more time, but softer now, almost like a blessing. Then he turned and walked away. That unsteady walk, that drunk stumble. I sat back down, watched him go. He made it maybe 20 feet, to the corner of the block. Then he stopped, patted his pockets, looked around, turned around, started walking back toward me. I tensed up. "Not this again." He came back to the bench, started looking around it, under it, behind it. "Left my bag," he muttered. "Can't believe I almost left my bag." I looked down. There was indeed a bag, an old backpack, faded black, sitting right there on the ground next to where he'd been sitting. I hadn't even noticed it, hadn't paid enough attention. He picked it up, slung it over his shoulder. "Shake the hand that shook the world," he said again, to himself this time. Made that sound, the quiet crowd cheer. Then he walked away again, for real this time. I watched him go, watched him turn the corner, watched him disappear from view. 2 minutes later, my bus arrived. I got on, found a seat, sat down. And for the entire ride home, I couldn't stop thinking about him. About the phrase he kept repeating, about the fresh tattoo, about the "I love you" from a stranger, about the sister who worried, about the broken phone he couldn't bring himself to use, about the backpack he'd almost forgotten. When I got home, I told my roommate about it. "Typical drunken stuff," she said. Didn't even look up from her laptop. She was right. It was typical. These kinds of encounters happen all the time in our town. But something about this one felt different. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about the phrase, "Shake the hand that shook the world." I looked it up online. Couldn't find anything. No famous quotes, no song lyrics, no references. Maybe he'd made it up. Maybe it was something personal to him, something that made sense in his drunk logic. Or maybe it meant exactly what he said, that he'd met people, done things, and now he was offering that connection to strangers at bus stops. I thought about the "I love you," how random it was, how unexpected, how genuine it sounded despite coming from someone who was clearly very drunk. In my town, you learn to be suspicious, to keep your guard up, to never trust anyone you don't know. But what if that's wrong? What if sometimes people just need to connect, to reach out, to remind each other that we're all human? Even drunk people, even homeless people, even the ones society has forgotten. The next day, I found myself looking for him, at the bus stop, around town. Part of me wanted to see him again, to ask him more questions, to understand the phrase, to figure out who he was. But I never saw him again. Not at that bus stop, not anywhere. He'd appeared, said his piece, disappeared back into the fabric of the town. I asked around, described him to some of the regulars, the other homeless people I saw regularly. A few people knew who I was talking about. "Oh yeah, that's Danny," one guy said. "He's harmless, just drunk all the time, says weird stuff." Danny. The drunk guy had a name. "He got that tattoo recently," another person told me. "Been showing it off to everyone, really proud of it." "Do you know what it says?" I asked. They shrugged. "Some words. Couldn't read it good." I wondered if the tattoo was the phrase, "Shake the hand that shook the world," permanently inked on his neck. A declaration, a reminder, a badge of identity. I told the story to my friends. Most of them laughed, thought it was funny. Just another weird drunken story. But one friend, Sarah, had a different reaction. "That's kind of beautiful," she said, in a sad way. "What do you mean?" "This guy, Danny, whoever he is, he's probably lost everything. Job, family, home, dignity. But he still has this phrase, this identity, this belief that he matters." She was right, I hadn't thought about it that way. "And the 'I love you,'" Sarah continued. "That's brave. Telling a stranger you love them, opening yourself up like that. Especially when you know they'll probably reject you." "I didn't reject him," I protested. "I just said I didn't know him." "Same thing though, you pushed back. But he didn't get angry, didn't get defensive. Just accepted it and still showed love." I sat with that for a while. The bravery of vulnerability, the courage of connection, things I'd never associated with drunk strangers at bus stops. My mom called a few days later. She still lives in Drunken too, a few blocks from where I grew up. I told her the story, about Danny, about the phrase, about the encounter. "That's your hometown," she said. Sounded tired, full of broken people trying to connect. "Did you ever meet anyone like that?" I asked. "Someone who said something strange but kind of meaningful?" Mom was quiet for a moment, thinking. "When I was your age," she said slowly, "there was a woman who used to sit outside the post office, every day. She'd tell everyone who passed that they were beautiful." "That's sweet." It was, until you realize she'd been sitting there for 3 years, every single day, telling strangers they were beautiful, because nobody had ever told her that. The sadness in Mom's voice was heavy. What happened to her? I don't know. One day she just wasn't there anymore. Nobody knows where she went, or if she's even still alive. That was the thing about Drunken. People appeared and disappeared like ghosts, here one day, gone the next. "Do you think Danny is okay?" I asked. "I don't know, honey. I hope so. But in this town, okay is relative." She was right. In Drunken, survival was success. Making it through another day was an accomplishment. I started paying more attention after that. To the people at bus stops, on street corners, in doorways. Started really looking at them instead of through them. Each one had a story. Each one had a phrase. Each one was trying to connect in whatever way they could. There was the woman who sang old hymns, voice cracked but sincere. She'd smile at everyone who passed. There was the man who did magic tricks for spare change. His hands shook, but he never gave up on the trick. There was the teenager who drew portraits on cardboard, offered them to anyone who'd sit still for 5 minutes. All of them trying, all of them reaching out, all of them human. I thought about what Danny said, about shaking hands, about connections, about chains of people touching people touching people. Every person in Drunken was part of that chain, Even the forgotten ones. Even the drunk ones. Even the ones society had decided didn't matter. 3 weeks have passed since the encounter. I still think about it. Still wonder about Danny. Still try to understand the phrase. I've been back to that bus stop dozens of times. Same bench. Same spot. But Danny hasn't returned. Maybe he doesn't take the bus. Maybe he moved. Maybe something happened to him. I'll probably never know. But the encounter changed something in me. Made me see my town differently. Drunken isn't just a place of despair. It's also a place of connection, of humanity, of people trying to reach each other despite everything. Sometimes in weird ways. Sometimes in drunk ways. Sometimes in ways that don't make sense until later. But always trying. To anyone living in a town like mine, look at the people around you. Really look at them. The drunk guy at the bus stop isn't just a drunk guy. He's Danny. He's someone's brother, someone's son, someone who once had dreams. The homeless woman singing hymns isn't just homeless. She's a person with a voice, with faith, with hope that tomorrow might be better. They're all trying to tell us something, to connect with us, to remind us that they exist. And sometimes all it takes is listening. Even when what they're saying doesn't make sense, even when it's just a phrase repeated over and over. Shake the hand that shook the world. Maybe Danny really did meet important people. Maybe he really did shake hands with people who mattered. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe it was all in his head, a story he told himself to feel important. But does it matter? Does the truth of the story matter more than what the story gave him? Identity, purpose, connection. Those are things everyone needs. Rich or poor, sober or drunk, housed or homeless. The I love you from a stranger doesn't seem so strange anymore. Maybe it was the most honest thing anyone has ever said to me. No conditions, no expectations, just love. Simple, pure, unconditional. Love a brother, you know? I get it now. What he meant. We're all in this together, all trying to survive, to matter, to connect. And sometimes the best way to do that is to tell a stranger you love them, to offer a handshake, to share a phrase, to remind each other that we're human. I hope Danny is okay. Wherever he is. I hope his sister isn't too worried. I hope he found a place to sleep last night. I hope someone was kind to him today. And I hope he's still saying it, still spreading his phrase, still offering his hand to strangers. Shake the hand that shook the world. Because maybe that's what we all need, to shake hands with people who see us, who acknowledge us, who remind us that we matter. Even if we're drunk, even if we're broken, even if we've been forgotten by everyone else. Someone will remember, someone will listen, someone will shake the hand that shook the world. And maybe that's enough. But the thing about stories is, they don't really end when you stop talking. They keep echoing in the back of your mind, reshaping what you notice, how you look at the world, how you treat people. For days after that encounter, I couldn't shake the image of Danny walking away that uneven gait, the backpack slung over one shoulder, the tattoo glistening under the streetlight. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how heavy his phrase had become in my mind. It wasn't just words anymore. It was a mirror. I started noticing hands. The cashier at the grocery store, her hands trembling slightly as she counted change. The old man who fixed bikes near the bus depot, his knuckles black with grease but gentle when he worked. The school kid holding his little sister's hand as they crossed the street. Every handshake, every touch, it all felt charged now. Like every palm carried invisible history. A week later, I walked back to that same bench. Same time, same place. The bus passed by, brakes screeching, but I didn't get on. I waited. Not for the bus for him. He didn't come. But I met someone else. An older woman in a thick brown coat sat down beside me, humming to herself. She was eating crackers straight from the sleeve. I asked if she'd heard of a man named Danny Thin, tattoo on his neck. Says, "Shake the hand that shook the world." She looked at me for a long second and nodded. "Yeah," she said. "Danny boy. Used to help people unload groceries for spare change. Haven't seen him in a while." "Do you know where he stays?" I asked. "Sometimes near the rail yard," she said. "Sometimes by the church shelter. He moves around." "You looking for him?" "Just wanted to check he's okay." The woman smiled sadly. "Not many people check on us, son. That means something." We sat in silence after that. She finished her crackers. Then she offered me the last one. "Shake the hand that shook the world, huh?" she said softly. My head snapped up. "You know that phrase?" She nodded again. "He says it all the time. Used to make people laugh, sometimes cry. What does it mean to you? She looked toward the cloudy sky. Means hope, she said finally. Means no matter how far you fall, someone's still willing to touch your hand. That night, I walked to the rail yard. The air smelled like rust and rain. Broken freight cars sat in rows, silent and forgotten like everything else in Drunken. A small fire burned inside a barrel near the tracks. 3 people huddled around it. I recognized one of them, Marcus, the ex-teacher who could quote Shakespeare. He nodded when he saw me. Back again, kid? Looking for Danny, I said. He poked at the fire with a stick. Haven't seen him in a few days. Left his backpack, though. He pointed to a corner, where an old black bag sat, half unzipped. It was the same one I'd seen at the bus stop. Inside were a few things: a worn notebook, a disposable camera, a pair of socks, a half-empty bottle of water, and a folded photograph. The photo showed 2 kids, a boy and a girl, standing in front of a Christmas tree. The boy looked like a young Danny. The girl must have been his sister. I flipped open the notebook. Most of the pages were blank, but on the first page, written in messy ink, were the words, "Shake the hand that shook the world because maybe that's the only way to be remembered." I didn't know what to do with that. Part of me wanted to take the bag home, keep it safe until I found him. Another part of me felt like it wasn't mine to touch, like it belonged to something bigger, a message I wasn't meant to change. Marcus saw me hesitating. "Take it," he said. He'd want someone to keep it safe. So I did. That night, I placed the backpack by my bed. It smelled like rain and smoke and faint traces of whiskey. I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the notebook. When I finally opened it again, I noticed faint marks on the next page, words written in pencil and almost erased. "If you're reading this, you shook my hand. That means you're part of the story now." I read it 3 times. Part of the story now. It hit me like a weight. Because that's exactly what had happened. His story had attached itself to mine. His phrase had become part of my thoughts. His presence had outlived the encounter. Maybe that was the whole point. The next morning, I called the shelter by the church. Asked if a man named Danny had checked in. The woman on the phone sighed. "Not in a few nights, but he comes and goes. You can leave a message if you want." I did. "Tell him Alex said hi," I said. "And tell him I get it now." Over the next week, I kept finding pieces of Danny everywhere, or maybe I was just noticing them for the first time. Someone had written, "Shake the hand that shook the world" on a wall near the post office, spray painted in sloppy black letters. Someone else had etched it into a bus stop sign with a pocket knife. It was like the town itself had started whispering his phrase. And people noticed. A barista wrote it on a tip jar. A local artist painted it on a mural of clasp hands. Even the pastor at Sunday service mentioned it in passing, said it reminded him of how every small kindness carries through eternity. Danny had vanished, but his words were multiplying. A few nights later, I dreamed about him. He was standing under a flickering streetlight, sober and clean, wearing a white shirt and smiling. He didn't say anything at first, just held out his hand. When I reached for it, I noticed the tattoo on his neck wasn't words anymore. It was a world map, small and delicate. He said, "You shook the hand that shook the world. Now it's your turn." And then he was gone. I woke up shaking. Not scared, just overwhelmed. I got dressed, grabbed the backpack, and went outside. It was still dark, the streets empty. I walked to the bus stop, the same bench, the same streetlight humming above. I placed the backpack on the bench, sat beside it, waited. A man passed by tired, carrying a duffel bag, eyes sunken from lack of sleep. "Hey," I said. He looked wary. I smiled. "You want to sit?" He hesitated, then nodded. We sat there in silence for a minute. Then I said softly, "Shake the hand that shook the world." He looked at me like I was crazy, but then he smiled. "All right, man," he said, and he shook my hand. And in that instant, I understood the phrase wasn't about fame or power or glory. It was about continuation, about keeping something alive by passing it on. Weeks passed. The phrase became local folklore. Kids scribbled it on notebooks. People used it as a greeting. A small movement started online number Shake the Hand, urging people to show kindness to strangers. Drunken changed, even if only a little. Not fixed, not saved, but softer. People started seeing each other again. The man who used to yell outside the grocery store, he started helping carry bags instead. The woman under the bridge, volunteers checked on her more often. Someone even cleaned the bench at the bus stop and left a small metal plaque there. It read, "Dedicated to Danny, the man who reminded us to shake hands with the world." I stood there the day they put it up. The sun was setting, painting the street in gold. I placed my hand on the plaque, whispered the words one last time, "Shake the hand that shook the world." And for the first time in a long time, Drunken didn't feel so broken. It felt alive. Like somewhere out there, a man with a fresh tattoo and a half-empty bottle was smiling because his story had finally done what he'd always wanted it to do. It had connected us,